On May 10th, 2024, the financial world lost its greatest ghost. When it comes to investing, no one is even close to Jim Simons. Not Warren Buffett, not George Soros, not even Ray Dalio. When Jim Simons passed away at 86, he left behind a personal net worth of over $31 billion. He didn't build it by picking good stocks or analyzing balance sheets. He built it by constructing a machine. Simons' company, Renaissance Technologies, has a signature hedge fund called Medallion that relies on an algorithm that has generated average annual returns of 66% for over 3 decades. To put this another way, renowned economist Bradford Cornell points out that if you had invested $100 in Medallion in 1988, 30 years later, that would have turned into $400 million. But here is the craziest part. Jim Simons never hired a single person from Wall Street.
Is it true that you never hired people from the investment industry?
Never.
Because he realized something that every traditional analyst missed. The global market is not a financial ecosystem. It is an encrypted military code. And Jim Simons was a Cold War codebreaker. To understand the machine, you have to understand the architect. Long before he ever traded a single stock, Jim Simons was a world-class mathematician. By age 23, he had a PhD from UC Berkeley. Shortly after, he was recruited by the IDA, the Institute for Defense Analyses, an elite, highly classified think tank cracking Soviet codes during the Cold War. His job was highly classified. He sat in windowless rooms, staring at mountains of chaotic, scrambled Soviet military broadcasts, tasked with finding the invisible mathematical structure hidden inside the noise. Decades later, looking at the stock market, Simons had a revelation. If you can find the mathematical structure in a scrambled military radio frequency, why couldn't you find it in the global financial markets? In 1978, Simons left academia, moved to a quiet office in East Setauket, New York, and founded Renaissance Technologies. But to build his machine, he had to break the #1 rule of Wall Street. He refused to hire anyone with a background in finance. Instead, he hired astrophysicists, cryptographers, and computer scientists, people who spent their lives looking at pure data, entirely free of financial bias. And the strategy they engineered relied on treating the stock market exactly like a high-stakes game of poker. Think about a poker tell.
Raise 50,000. 50 isn't enough. I'm all in.
A professional poker player doesn't need to know why their opponent's eye is twitching. They don't care what the opponent had for breakfast or how they feel. They just know that historically, when that player's eye twitches, they are bluffing 82% of the time. Simon's team realized the stock market has tells. We, humans, suffer from pareidolia, the psychological phenomenon where the brain forces itself to see patterns in random noise. We see faces in the clouds, and we see trends in stock charts that simply do not exist. We trade on fear. We panic sell when the news is bad. We buy on greed when a stock is hyped. These human emotions create tiny, predictable mistakes in the market. A slight overreaction here, a momentary panic there. His goal was to build an autonomous algorithm that could identify these statistical anomalies and exploit them before a human could even blink. To capture these mistakes, they used a concept called mean reversion. Imagine stretching a rubber band as far as it can go. Eventually, it has to snap back. In the markets, when a stock price shoots up or crashes down way past its statistical average, the algorithm bets that it will eventually snap back to the middle. But to predict exactly when the rubber band would snap, they needed data. While other firms were analysing the last few months of stock performance, Renaissance bought every piece of historical market data they could find, dating all the way back to the 1800s. They were mapping the DNA of the global economy. But this is where the puzzle gets complicated. How do you turn tiny rubber band snaps into $100 billion? In the 1990s, when Simons brought in 2 computer scientists, Robert Mercer and Peter Brown, Mercer and Brown realized that the secret to infinite wealth wasn't making a few massive, brilliant trades. It was making millions of tiny, automated, lightning-fast bets. This is the philosophy of statistical arbitrage at scale, and it relies on one mind-bending mathematical truth. You don't need to be right 90% of the time. In fact, the most profitable machine in the history of finance, the legendary Medallion Fund, is only right on about 50.75% of its trades. Think about a casino. The casino doesn't win every hand of blackjack. They only have a tiny fraction of a percent edge over the player. But because they play millions of hands a day, that tiny edge guarantees they make billions of dollars. Jim Simons turned the stock market into his own personal casino. His computers execute up to 300,000 trades a day. They might only make a fraction of a single cent on each trade. But Simons used a financial tool called leverage, borrowing money to multiply the size of a trade. Leverage acts like a financial magnifying glass. When you put a magnifying glass over a fraction of a penny and compound it 300,000 times a day, 365 days a year, the wealth becomes astronomical. In 1988, they launched their master algorithm, the Medallion Fund. In 1989, it lost money. That was the last time it ever did. Through the dot-com crash of 2000, Medallion made money. But the ultimate test of the algorithmic machine came in 2008. During the 2008 global financial crisis, the world economy was in freefall. People lost their homes. Legacy banks were wiped off the map. Everyone attached to the stock market was bleeding out. But Medallion wasn't attached to the market. Simons had engineered a system with what is known as negative beta. To understand negative beta, think of the global economy as a massive elevator. When the cables snap and the market goes into a terrifying freefall, a negative beta fund doesn't crash with it. It acts as the counterweight. So the violent downward force of the crashing market is the exact same energy that launches the counterweight straight to the top. While everyone else was being crushed by gravity, Medallion was going up. During the worst financial crisis of our lifetime, the Medallion Fund practically doubled its money, returning an astonishing 98% in pure profit. In 1993, Jim Simons closed the fund to outside investors. By 2005, they bought out the last external stakeholder. Today, the Medallion Fund is exclusively owned by Renaissance employees. Furthermore, the fund is hard capped at around $10 billion. Every year, they distribute the billions in profit back to the employees, resetting the machine to run perfectly again the next morning. It is a completely closed loop of immense wealth generation. It was the financial equivalent of a perfectly tuned, high-performance V12 engine operating with zero friction. Jim Simons didn't just build a hedge fund, he built a perfect system. He took the chaotic, messy, highly emotional world of human commerce and forced it to obey the laws of physics and mathematics. He proved that underneath the noise, panic and greed, there is a rhythm, there is a pattern. And for 36 years, Jim Simons was the only man who knew the tune. Building a flawless system like Medallion requires an obsessive understanding of variables and data. If you are building your own systems, whether that's an investment portfolio, a business, or trying to scale, you can't rely on guesswork. You need a blueprint. If you want to understand the exact frameworks behind how billion-dollar empires scale their operations, I broke down the brutal efficiency of the modern corporate machine in this video right here. Click the screen and I'll see you there.